Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijacārya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijacārya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So that was a pretty hot kirtan, so I'm taking my coat off. Hare Krishna. Okay. Narayan Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudирayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by regular devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost in nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 4th day of August 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. and we're studying 8th canto, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, 19th chapter. Lord Vāmanadeva begs charity from Bali Mahārāja, and we're on text 41, and we're going to finish the chapter. That says 42. Well, I guess I'll read this one myself. Yeah. Paragriktam apurnam va aksharam yattarom iti yat kinchid om iti bruyat tena richeta vaipuman bhikshave sarvamom kurvan nalam kamena chatmane. Meaning, the utterance of the word Om signifies separation from one's monetary assets. In other words, by uttering the word, one becomes free from attachment to money because his money is taken away from him. To be without money is not very satisfactory, for in that position one cannot fulfill one's desires. In other words, by using the word Om, one becomes poverty-stricken. Especially when one gives charity to a poor man or beggar, one remains unfulfilled in self-realization and in sense gratification. Purport. Mahārāja Bali wanted to give everything to Vāmanadeva, who had appeared as a beggar, but Śukrācārya, being Mahārāja Bali's familial spiritual master in the line of seminal succession, could not appreciate Mahārāja Bali's promise. Śukrācārya gave Vedic evidence that one should not give everything to a poor man. Rather, when a poor man comes for charity, one should untruthfully say, "Whatever I have given you. I have no more." Close quote. It is not that one should give everything to him. Actually, the word Om is meant for Om Tat Sat, the absolute truth. Omkar is meant for freedom from all attachment to money, because money should be spent for the purpose of the Supreme. The tendency of modern civilization is to give money in charity to the poor. Such charity has no spiritual value, because we actually see that although there are so many hospitals and other foundations and institutions for the poor, according to the 3 modes of material nature, a class of poor men is always destined to continue. Even though there are so many charitable institutions, poverty has not been driven from human society. Therefore, it is recommended here, Bhikshave sarvam om kurvan nalam kamena chatmani. One should not give everything to the beggars among the poor. The best solution is that of the Krishna consciousness movement. This movement is always kind to the poor, not only because it feeds them, but also because it gives them enlightenment by teaching them how to become Krishna conscious. We are therefore opening hundreds and thousands of centers for those who are poor, both in money and in knowledge, to enlighten them in Krishna consciousness and reform their character by teaching them how to avoid illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, which are the most sinful activities and which cause people to suffer life after life. The best way to use money is to open such a center where all may come live and reform their character. They may live very comfortably without denial of any of body's necessities, but they live under spiritual control, and thus they live happily and save time for advancement in Krishna consciousness. If one has money, it should not be squandered away on nothing. It should be used to push forward the Krishna consciousness movement so that all of human society will become happy, prosperous, and hopeful of being promoted back home, back to Godhead. The Vedic mantra in this regard is as follows, and I'm going to skip this. This is a long prose passage, and we will now chant text 42. Ataitat Purnam Abhyatmam Yach Cha Neti Anvitam Vachaha Sarvam Neti Anvitam Bruyat Sa Dushkirtihi Shvasan Mitaha Ataitat Purnam Abhyatmam Yache Netyanvitam Vachaha Sarvam Netyanvitam Bruyat Sadushkirti Shvasan Mitaha Ataitat Purnam Abhyatmam Yache Netyanvitam Vachaha Sarvam Netyanvitam Bruyat Sadushkirti Shvasan Mitaha Ataitat Purnam Abhyatmam Yachat Netyanvitam Vachaha Sarvam Netyanvitam Bruyat Sadushkirti Shvasan Mitaha Ataitat purnam abhyatmam yachanit janmatam vachaha sarvamit janmatam bruyat sajushkirti shvasanmitaha ataitat purnam abhyatmam yachanit janmatam vachaha sarvam nit janmatam bruyat sadushkirti shvasanmitaha ataitat purnam abhyatmam yachanit janmatam vachaha sarvam nit janmatam bruyat sadushkirti shvasanmitaha ataitat purnam abhyatmam yachanit janmatam vachaha sarvam nit janmatam bruyat sadushkirti shvasanmitaha ata. Therefore, etat, that, purnam, completely, abhyatmam, drawing the compassion of others by presenting oneself as always poverty-stricken. Yat, that. Cha, also. Na, not. Iti, thus. Anritam, false. Vachaha, words. Sarvam, completely. Na, not. Iti, thus. Anritam, falsity. Bruyat, who should say? Saha, such a person. Dushkirtihi, infamous. Shvasan, while breathing or while alive. Mritaha, is dead or should be killed. Translation. Therefore, this is Śukrācārya speaking to Bali, trying to convince him not to give the charity that he's already promised. Therefore, the safe course is to say no. Although it is a falsehood, it protects one completely. It draws the compassion of others toward oneself, and it gives one full facility to collect money from others for oneself. Nonetheless, if one always pleads that he has nothing, he is condemned, for he is a dead body while living, or while still breathing he should be killed. Purport. Beggars always present themselves as possessing nothing, and this may be very good for them, because in this way they are assured of not losing their money and of always drawing the attention and compassion of others for the sake of collection. But this is also condemned. If one purposely continues this professional begging, he is said to be dead while breathing. Or according to another interpretation, such a man of falsity should be killed while still breathing. The Vedic injunction in this regard is as follows. Ataitat purnam abhyatmam yan neti sayat sarvam neti bruyat papikasya kirti jayate sainam tatraiva hanyat. If one continuously poses himself as possessing nothing and collects money by begging, he should be killed. Sainam tatraiva hanyat. Okay, so I'm going to finish the chapter. I'm just going to read the English translation to the last verse. In flattering a woman to bring her under control, in joking, in a marriage ceremony, in earning one's livelihood, when one's life is in danger, in protecting cows and Brahminical culture, or in protecting a person from an enemy's hand, falsity is never condemned. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 19th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Vāmanadeva Begs Charity from Bali Mahārāja. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parāv, the disciplic succession. So this is Śukrācārya, who is making the case for Bali going back on his promise to give Vāmanadeva 3 steps of land, which turns out to be the whole universe. Because Śukrācārya could see that this was actually not just a simple dwarf brahmachari, but he is he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he'll take everything. So just a note on this Śukrācārya, for those who haven't heard. Śukrācārya is also known as Uṣana. And if you turn to the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find that Krishna identifies himself as Uṣana. He says, of Kavis, I am Uṣana. And many wonder, what is this? Because Śukrācārya now is telling Bali to go back on his promise. It could be offensive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if we speak a lie in front of the deities, we know that's an offense. What if we speak a lie directly to the deities? That I promise you this, and then you go. So Bali will reject Śukrācārya, which was Vāmanadeva's whole purpose. If you go back in the previous chapter, you see that Vāmana is explaining that when he first appears to a deity, he says the problem is that the demigods now have the favor of the Brahmins because they're following Śukrācārya, who's the lead Brahmin, you see. And so they're empowered. That's how they were empowered to take away the demigods' homes and to exile them. And who knows where they are now. They're away from deity. She's very upset. So it's more than just, he feels, well, Krishna can do anything. He could go and just kill all the demons and take it. But he says, no, I can't do that because they have the favor of the Brahmins. So he has this strategy of breaking their favor from the Brahmins by Bali rejecting Śukrācārya. And so that's the whole idea of him appearing as this miniature Brahmin, begging charity. And Bali, recalling how Śukrācārya said, yes, we should highly honor the Brahmins. He promises him 3 steps of land. Now, if he's just an ordinary dwarf Brahmin, with 3 little steps, what's the big deal? But Śukrācārya says, so wait a minute, this is God in disguise. He may look like a little brahmachari, but he's really Narayan. So you promise him 3 steps, and he'll somehow expand those 3 steps to cover everything, which is what he does. So Śukrācārya, seeing that, we just heard, he's trying to convince Bali that it's all right to lie, when it comes to these things, because you shouldn't give beggars everything you own, So you'll see what Bali's response is. This is Bali will reject Śukrācārya, and Vāmanadeva will then expand. He's also known as Urukrama. Who knows what Urukram means? Big steps. He who takes big steps. That's one meaning. Another one, he who performs wonderful activities. So, and then he will bless Bali. But the whole. It's very wonderful that he takes in 2 steps. He covers the whole universe and pokes a hole in the universal covering, and some causal ocean water leaks in. It's very powerful spiritually. Washes off the dust from his lotus feet, and that becomes the Ganges. But it has to come down, and so there's a chapter in the 5th canto. The demigods bring the Ganges down to earth in apparently a whole bunch of airplanes. It's pretty far out. So Bali, he becomes a Mahajan. He becomes the exemplar for Atmanivedanam by saying, because Vāmanadeva, well, I covered everything with two steps. When am I going to put my 3 steps? 3rd step. So he said, put it on my head. In other words, he surrenders himself. And in that way, he's Atmanivedanam. And, but he still gets exiled to Rasatala. But Vāmana says, I'm going to be your doorman. I'll always be there for you. So it's a whole far out thing. That's what's going to happen. But these, this Śukrācārya, although he's giving bad advice here for Bali, going back on your promise to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's speaking, he's stretching the truth here. In earning one's livelihood, it's okay to tell lies. Prabhupada says that, on the tape, when you say, for you we make no profit, of course that's a lie, we didn't make profit. But anyway, he's obviously going out of the out of the way to convince Bali to go back on his promise for one very simple reason. Because if Bali does follow through and he loses everything, then what's Śukrācārya going to do? He's going to be a beggar, because he's dependent completely on Bali. So that's Śukrācārya's motive. But later on, as I did some research, Śukrācārya offers some very wonderful prayers to Vāmanadeva, and that's why, you know, he quotes all of these mantras here. So he's a kavi, and he's also a devotee ultimately. You know, so therefore Krishna identifies with him. But this whole chapter is very fascinating, because as I mentioned in a previous class, the chapter is filled with people and God Himself pretending to be something He's not. There's a lot of, you know, Bali is not really a demon. Little Vāmanadeva is not really a dwarf Brahman, and Śukrācārya is not really who he seems to be. But the result of it's very wonderful pastime and filled with many wonderful lessons. How, you know, Bali, I mean, he did conquer the demigods, you know, and he took the role of a demon, but he really wasn't, being a grandson of Prahlāda. And all of Prahlad's, if you recall the pastime when Prahlāda begged for his father to be forgiven, then he said, "Don't worry, so many generations before and after you will get my favor, because you're such a wonderful devotee." So here is the evidence of that. Another son, a descendant, was Banasura. Now he didn't really turn out to be much of a devotee, but when Krishna fought him, you recall that Usha and Aniruddha was kidnapped by Chitralekha and brought back, and Usha and Aniruddha having an affair within the inner compartments of the palace. So Banasura was shocked, you know, because he had all these guards. He's supposed to protect her, you know, her chastity. So then Banasura, they arrested Aniruddha, you know, but Krishna came. And there was a fight, and Banasura was favored by Shiva, and favored in like quid quotes. He was given 1,000 arms, you know, for which, and then he played drums. You can imagine how many drums he could play with that in time, you know. And Shiva was dancing because he likes to dance, you know. So he got the favor of Shiva. But then he goes to Shiva and complains, you know, "I've got all these arms, but there's no one I can fight with, you know. So I just hit the mountains, you know, exercise, get off, you know." So Shiva says, "You'll meet someone who'll conquer you, you know." So Bali, you know, so Banasura was happy about that. All right, I'll meet someone who I can fight with. But actually, what happened is that the Shiva Dwar and the Vishnu Dwar fought first, you know, and those are weapons, representative weapons, and Vishnu Dwar, the cold weapon beat the heat weapon. Prabhupada says, if it's hot, you can somehow stand it, you know, like in India, you know. But if it really gets cold, everything collapses, you know, everything freezes, you know, like that. So the Vishnu Dwar won that battle, and then Shiva, I think himself, was fighting for a while. Anyway, so then Banasura is what's going to happen to Banasura now. So Krishna doesn't kill him, and he doesn't even fight with him. He just cuts off 996 arms. So he's got 4 arms left. But he didn't kill him because he's a descendant of Prahlāda. But here, Bali gets much better dealing because he's actually a devotee. Banasura is more or less a demon. You know, he's not conformed. But Bali is a great devotee, but he gets exiled. After all of that, he did fulfill, you know, he gave 3 steps of land, but he gets arrested, you know, which is kind of humiliating. And then he gets exiled to Rasatala. But Vāmanadeva agrees to be his doorman, you know, and then you know what happens after that. After the whole Manvantara is over, he becomes Indra. Bali takes the role of Indra in the next Manvantara. So it's Bali, and he's also a Mahajan, so his true nature comes out. So the you know, this instruction here. I mean, this is a one of the things that's really comes out in this passage is the over concern with one's maintenance that occurs if you're on the material platform. then everything becomes, oh, okay, how can I make more money, become more wealthy, and get a better place in society? And this is what this modern society is all about. Kali Yuga is filled with that, right? And what happens is that becomes paramount, and there's all kinds of cheating going on. You know, the main thing is I got to get the money, so I'll just tell this lie. Like the internet is filled with scams and all these different things, especially old people. You know, I get these messages. Oh, thank you for your renewal of your subscription for this. You know, we'll be debiting your account $360. You know, and if you have any questions, call this 800 number. And so they want you to call, and they said, "Oh, we're sorry. You know, we debited it, but just give us your information, and then we'll send the money back." And then the next thing you know, your bank is you have nothing left in the bank. That happens all the time. So that cheating, that becomes very, very prominent when God consciousness becomes less, because the whole thing is in training. The idea is that, you know, if you in Vedic culture, in the Varnashram, you get into the Gurukul, and even the wealthy, you know, like Prabhupada gives the example of Kṛṣṇa. You know, after he killed Kamsa, right? Then he releases his parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, and they send him to Gurukul. Remember, Sandipani Muni. Everyone said Sandipani, but it's Sandipani Muni. What was the city where he was in? The modern city? What? Avanti. Avanti. Okay, Avanti. So it's south. And he went there, and he took the position of a simple brahmachari as the servant of Sandipani Muni. And so there's that wonderful scene where he goes out in the forest to get wood, you know, and of course Krishna's arranging in this, and so there's a huge downpour, you know. And so he and who is the Brahman? Sudama Vipra. Sudama Vipra. He's his fellow brahmachari in the ashram. So they're out in the forest, and all these pouring out, and they can't find the way home. Of course, Krishna could easily lead them home, but he wanted to, you know, this is a great friendship he has now with him. And they stayed overnight, and then finally next morning, Sandipani went to find them, you know. And so Krishna is showing by his example that being raised in this way, which means, you know, and even if you're from a rich family, you have to beg, you know, for the spiritual master and live in very austere circumstances. That's really the culture. So that you learn that human life is meant for controlling the senses and for tamping down, you know, not getting possessed by greed and simple absorption in material things, which just keeps you bound to this material world. And you're wasting precious human life in these material aspirations. So all of this is like a subtext here, and it comes up again and again in the Bhagavatam. You know, that what is this human life meant for? It's meant for inquiring. Sanatana Goswami, who am I? Why am I suffering birth, old age, disease, and death? Is there a way out of this? You know, this was as he approached Lord Chaitanya. So that impetus is essential in the human life, and it's only available in the human life. So how do we get that question? We need some association of devotees, so that we can hear some of this philosophy. And this was Prabhupada's great, victory. He came on the order of his spiritual master and to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's prediction. And when he was 69 years old. Actually, he was 68 when he got on board the boat. He turned 69 when John Mashtami was on and Vyasa Puja. So, but his health was not that great. You know, he had 2 heart attacks, and he writes in his journal, "I knew if I had a third one, I'd be a goner." You know, so Krishna comes to him in a dream. He says, "Don't worry. You know, I'm going to take charge of the boat." You know, and I always marvel at this because I lived in Miami for 6 years. And of course, there especially the hurricanes are coming, you know. But the whole Atlantic, because you look at many of those hurricanes, they don't even hit the mainland or anything, you know. They just go right into the ocean. But then it's pretty dangerous in the ocean to be on a ship when a hurricane hits, right? So it was hurricane season, August, September. That's the heart of it. But the Atlantic was supernaturally calm. Let's put it that way. It was so calm. I always tell this story that Prabhupada relates that the wife of the captain, he had his wife with him on that trip. She said, "Swami, can you come back with us? Because that was the calmest crossing we've ever had." You know, it was a joke. Of course, he wasn't. So all of that Prabhupada undertook. And when he came to New York, he struggled for a year, really. I mean, he had some progress, you know, but then really not, you know. One of the best things that came out of that year was the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada had this reel-to-reel, big, clunky tape recorder. And he knew how to work it, and he recorded the whole introduction, which is now the introduction. And of course, then the tape recorder was stolen. But the thief didn't steal the most valuable thing, which was that tape with the introduction on it. So then, of course, Prabhupada got his connection to come down. You know, the people had heard from the Paradox restaurant. There was this new guru up there. It was really, and he relocated down in the Bowery. Anyone who knows New York, the Bowery. Now we have homeless people everywhere. You know, here in this part of San Diego, you don't have such a density. But you know, you see some old lady. You know, I just saw pushing a cart. You know, with her possessions in the thing. It's sad to see. But so Prabhupada, he was, you know, he had his little shelter in Butler, Pennsylvania, which has now become famous for another thing, which I won't mention, but you know. And but he didn't want to stay there. He couldn't really make much headway there, so he made his way to New York. And he had that little shelter with Dr. Mishra, but Dr. Mishra really saw how charismatic Prabhupada was. He didn't let him preach after a while, right? He exiled him to the west side, Riverside, to a little office, you know, with no cooking facility. Was there a bathroom? There must have been some. No windows, windowless, you know. So all of that Prabhupada's undertaking for us, so that we could get the knowledge that he possessed, and the example, and also the process of devotional service. That was his desire, and he showed, you know, come hell or high water, he's going to try to fulfill that, even at the risk of his life. He did. And of course, he gave him the success. You know the story how he started that Bowery. Now the Bowery in those days, those who are old enough know, that's where all the homeless people went from America. You know, they tried to make their way there. You know, and they were on every corner. I remember I used to visit. I lived in Long Island. I would go in there all the time, and the people, they would always have their bottle of whiskey, you know, and everything. It was a sad place. But north of that, north of Houston, you started out with the Lower East Side, which was decent, you know. It was still not really very wealthy, but it was decent, and that's where Prabhupada was able to start his matchless gifts. And they very wisely, I read recently, they left that sign on there, matchless gifts, because it really was matchless gifts. Anyway, we know the history. And why? So he could give us this knowledge. So we could read this, and we could read about the different avatars, of which Vāmanadeva is very prominent, and be inspired to read Krishna's pastimes and read the wonderful qualities of the devotees, and have Srila Prabhupada before as an example, and especially in this age, to be able to chant Hare Krishna. As soon as you do that with some faith and some concentration, you feel the effect. You feel enlivened, you feel blissful, you know, you get a little dollop of bliss, and you say, well, this is real, this is potent, you know. Just like Allen Ginsberg. I mean, he wasn't really a strict devotee, but he went to India and he got Hare Krishna mantra. And he would play that Hare Krishna mantra. And Prabhupada welcomed him in, and he helped the movement at the beginning there, when Prabhupada was in the Lower East Side. So that's what, and the next chapter, of course, will tell the details of just what I summarized. So this is what the Bhagavatam is. It's Krishna appearing. You know, we see all these different avatars coming, and they all have this unique quality. In the Shringadev we had in the 9th chapter, and a unique, to say the least, avatar. He appeared in that form so that he could kill Hiranyakashipu, but not violate any of the promises of Brahma. You see, eventually, when he saw Brahma, he chastised him. Don't give these benedictions to the demons. You know, it's a big problem. But that's so wonderful how Prahlad was so fearless, so brave. You know, preaching to his father, you know, who's this big monstrous demon who became even more monstrous by, you know, severe austerities. You get power through austerity. I mean, that's if it's not divine, you know, sattvic austerity for the purpose of spiritual life, you still get powerful. You know, it gives you power. So he became super powerful. He was ruling the whole universe. Even Narada Muni said, I had to bow down to him. You know, everyone but Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu were bowing down. You can imagine. And he was very proud, you know. And it's not an accident that his name has Hiranya in it, so does his brother. Hiranyaksha, always looking for gold, where I can get more gold. That's it, right? Aksha means eyes. And Hiranyakashipu, Prabhupada explained, yes, the demons, they always want more money, more wealth, and the soft bedding and the bed companion. You don't have to, you use your imagination. So that's the focus of the demons: money and wealth and material pleasure. So Krishna comes in order to kill the demons. Paratanaya saranam vinachayasya dushkritam. You see? Dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So in killing Hiranyakashipu, he fulfilled that verse. And he reestablished Dharma in the person of Prahlad. He's Prahlad Mahārāja. He'd been, you know, was he the king at age 5? I don't know. I don't think so. Well, he was just 5, 6 years old, right? I don't know if he became king at that time, but anyway, he did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and Prabhupada always said Prahlad Mahārāja. As soon as he's born, he's Prahlad Mahārāja. So, so anyway. So these all of these accounts and the Srimad Bhagavatam and just the wonderful instruction that we get. So there's so many self-contained lessons. Of course, the first one that I remember was very famous. The second chapter of the first canto, starting in verse 6. You know, what is real Dharma? What is that Dharma by which the soul can really become satisfied and blissful? You know, the sages in Naimisharanya wanted to know that of Sutta Goswami. So he starts at Savai Pungsang Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktirat Hokshade Haitu Pratiyata Yatma Supersedity. The supersedity, he's answering the question, and he goes on. So that Dharma, which engenders devotion to Adhokshaja. Now this is a name that's often used when you're talking about beginning devotional service, because it doesn't describe Krishna's Leela or even his power or anything. All it says, he's completely transcendental. Adha Akshaja, it's made of 3 words. Ja is just short for Janma, or born. Akshaja is knowledge born of your material senses, starting with the eyes and the ears. You see? In other words, material knowledge. And Adha means down. Krishna pushes that down. He's transcendental to all that knowledge. So we cannot perceive him with our present material eyes and senses. And, you know, he has to have an intervention. You know, the intervention where he takes the initiative, and he comes personally or sends his representative to give us the means by which we can at least intimate the transcendence. We can begin to perceive, especially through sound, and especially in this age through Hare Krishna mantra. So that giving us access, that requires the spiritual master, and the spiritual master is representative. All the book distributors and every one of us who you know, tells someone to chant Hare Krishna, or spreads Krishna consciousness, or just comes to the temple on Sunday and dance and chants, and we have so many guests, we're illustrating how Krishna consciousness, Krishna himself, can transform your life. Go from the hippies to the happies, you know, as Prabhupada says famously. So all of that is Krishna's desire for this age. And it comes as Lord Chaitanya, and there'll be a 10,000-year hiatus, right? It started 500 and some odd years ago, in which Lord Chaitanya's teachings and the mantra and everything will prevail. Now, sometimes it looks, really? It seems impossible. Climate change, nuclear war, the president, I don't want to mention his name. They don't, you know, if they're listening, I may be president of the temple, anyway. I'm just kidding, but it's the thing, the surveillance state. Anyway, there's all of these countervailing forces, but we have Krishna on our side, right? God is all powerful. So if we actually surrender and become sincere devotees, we can help change this world. And all over the world, this movement is grown, and TOVP is getting manifested. You know, all for the same purpose of spreading the glory of the Lord and the Lord's devotees and the process of devotional service. That's what Bhagavatam is all about. And so here we're seeing, another amazing avatar who's going to benefit everybody by, exalting Bali and his teachings that he has, and providing an example for, how to work in this world and for the ultimate good of everyone involved. And it's not Prabhupada criticized in the early verses that I read, simply trying to help the poor materially, opening free hospitals of things. I mean, that's pious. It's a sinful activity, but ultimately it's futile, because it doesn't address the root of the problem, which is the sinful mentality. The sinful mentality and performing of sins, which will cause losing the human form of life. The greatest welfare activity is to give someone Krishna consciousness, or give them, awaken their interest in Krishna consciousness. They'll come to the temple, they'll read that book that they bought, and in this way their consciousness will change. The whole conception of who they are. First lesson is, I'm not the body, I condensed the whole thing in a little mantra. Every body dies, nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. So that, that's just based on the Shastra, obviously, based on the Gita. But so let's study Srimad Bhagavatam and try to live strict devotional lives, and we can become agents for the Lord, agents for Prabhupada, and satisfy Krishna and go back to Godhead and take as many people as possible, take as many souls as possible with us. Okay, any questions, comments? It's 8:30 on the dot. Okay, Mukunda first.
I have two things. I'll try to keep them short. The first one is I keep rereading this text 41, text 42, and the purports, and it just seems to not really make sense. And maybe I'm just tired and I can't make sense of it. It's very clear, but to me it doesn't make sense, because Śukrācārya is saying, for instance, in text 42, he's saying the safe course is to say no. And then it seems that he condemns saying no.
Where is that?
By saying no, you become a beggar, and being a beggar is condemned, you should be killed. That sort of begging. But he starts off, the translation starts off that the safe course is to say no. Yes, it's a falsehood, but look at the advantages, but ultimately you should be killed for being so deceitful. And then the purport, Srila Prabhupada doesn't, at least the purport doesn't seem to clear it up. It seems like in the purport, it's like, what kind of begging are we talking about? Are we talking about, it seems like it's almost unclear, is the begging that's being condemned Vāmanadeva's begging, and that's being condemned by Śukrācārya, that, begging makes you like this, and therefore begging isn't, or is the begging that's being condemned the kind of, not begging, but the kind of lie that Śukrācārya is encouraging Bali to make, which is that I can't give you anything, I don't have it. And so therefore you're acting like you're destitute. So it seems kind of, unclear. What kind of destitute position is being condemned? That of Bali or that of Vāmanadeva? By Śukrācārya and in the purport. It's just not, it seems like it's kind of almost like mixing, going back and forth, unless I'm just getting it mixed up.
The 42, it starts out with, therefore the safe course is to say no, which is what he's aiming at. He wants Bali to deny him the charity, even though he promised it. So, although it is a falsehood, it protects one completely. It draws the compassion of others toward oneself, and it gives one full facility to collect money from others for oneself.
So far, who are we talking about?
Yeah.
So far, Bali. He should lie.
Well, he's talking to Bali, and the safe course for you is to say no. Although it's a falsehood, it protects one completely. In other words, it will protect you completely from giving everything away and then screwing me up, because I don't have nothing. That's the whole purpose of it. Draws the compassion of others. Now, I'm not sure why that will. I agree. Why would that draw compassion of others to you? You're the one with all the money, and you're saying no to give charity, although it's a lie. It protects one, and he doesn't have to become poverty-stricken. But why would it draw the compassion? I don't know.
Well, I could see why it would draw compassion, because if you say I don't have anything, then people think, oh, you don't have anything. Oh, I won't ask anything from you. Let me give you something, and so on. So I could see why acting like you're destitute draws compassion from people.
Oh, I guess
so
if people don't know that you're very rich, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me. So if Bali were to lie and say, I can't give you anything, I'm destitute, I don't have anything, I could see how that protects him. I could see how that draws compassion. I can see how that gives him facility to collect money for himself. And Prabhupada talks about that in purport, how beggars can kind of actually cheat people with their begging. But then at the end of this translation, nonetheless, if one always pleads that he has nothing, he's condemned, he's a dead body while living, while still breathing, he should be killed. So I just don't get it.
I'm sorry. I'd have to do some. What I can do is I'll look in Vishnu Chakravarti's commentary, the other commentaries.
It just doesn't. It just seems like something's fuzzy there. Yeah.
Because you become
it's criticizing, posing yourself as destitute. It's criticizing it, but then it almost seems like it's going back and forth. It's very vague as to whose position is being criticized: Bali lying or Vāmanadeva begging. And it seems like it kind of makes sense if he's going to criticize Vāmanadeva for begging. But here it starts off he's saying that Bali should beg because of the advantages, and then is he then criticizing Vāmanadeva's begging? But
And then put it in a perspective, I think that you have two options here, and he's kind of glorifying, not glorifying, condoning the action on Bali's part, but also.
Prabhu, can you use the mic?
I'm just not seeing that in the text, though. I'm just not seeing that.
Anyway, I agree it's a puzzle, and I think instead of taking up time with it here, that I could try to research it.
Okay. Second question is, maybe it would be an exaggeration to say every time, but virtually every time, when you bring up the 10,000 year, or the rest of Kali Yuga.
Oh, yeah.
Kali Yuga. Then you accessorize it by adding the point that, well, I don't know how it's possible. You look at climate change, you look at, and so on. And it's kind of lighthearted, but I actually wonder, do you have any doubts about the 10,000 year Kali Yuga, human civilization lasting another 10,000 years, when you look at climate change or other things on the news?
No, I can't doubt it, but I'm just saying that it looks impossible, but there's a million other things in the Bhagavatam and things that's happened that looks impossible, and or at least unlikely. But I believe that Krishna is all powerful and he can turn everything around.
I think that's because I've seen devotees. So you want to say something? I see devotees go two different directions. Some they think about, okay, if you look at Bhagavatam and its predictions of human civilization in the yugas, and how human civilization is predicted to last another 10,000 years. Yes, it will degrade, but it will last. And it's not predicted that there's going to be any immediate catastrophe where all of human civilization is wiped out within the next 20 years or something. Mm-hmm. And so then if you look at that in Shastra, then if you look at what's on the news, and they're saying 10 years, 20 years, all of human civilization could be wiped out, and there's kind of like a sort of doomsday presentation. I feel like I see many devotees take solace that yes, there are all these predictions, but Shastra doesn't predict this, and therefore I look at Shastra and I'm actually more optimistic and I don't kind of speak or live or encourage people according to what's on the news. I speak to them according to what's in Shastra. Other devotees flip it. I've seen do the other direction, where they see what's in Shastra, but then even when commenting on it, they kind of more insert the perspective of the news that, well, it says this, but if you look at what's on the news, I don't know if it's possible that we can last, I don't know if we can last another 20 years, if you look at what's on the news. So that's why I'm not sure if when devotees are making those comments, it's actually a sincere doubt about what's there in Shastra because of what's on the news, or if it's just a lighthearted.
Well, I think someone can resolve it, and his name is Sureshwar. Give him the mic.
For me, it's all resolved by an old saying.
1 second.
Say that again.
For me, it's resolved.
Yeah, because it goes out everywhere. Yeah.
Well, it's resolved by an old saying, which actually appears in a lyric in an old 1960s song. The darkest hour is just before the dawn.
Oh yeah, that's the quote from the literature. I don't know where that's not just from that song.
It also appears in an old Mamas and the Papas song.
Yeah, they're quoting.
But also, when the Fifth Dimension recorded the age of Aquarius, they were a black group. If you remember, they were black people who weren't accepted by the blacks because they sounded white.
Uh-huh.
And they had the dawning of And but they were singing that. This is the dawning of the age. The most bleak in the '60s. The black people were rioting.
Yeah.
In Watts and in Detroit and so many places. So so there's an example of the darkest hour being just before the dawn. So
Yeah.
I have no doubt. I mean, it's in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Prabhupada
Yes,
quotes that in Ginsburg,
yeah.
in Columbus.
I guess I should probably preface it. It really looks hopeless, but we should have faith and confidence that it's going to happen.
And sometimes before it gets better, it gets worse. Like when you take an herbal remedy.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're going to experience some purification. You're going to get some pain, but then it's going to be good when your health stabilizes.
Yeah. Okay, we have the Kirtaneshwar here. Over here.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Oh, you got it. Okay, I'm sorry.
So my question is in a little different realm of what you were talking about. One comment and one question. One comment is just an interesting point I read once, that one of the reasons that Balaram was the killer of Dhenukasura was because he was also a descendant of Bali and Prahlad Maharaj, and so that's why Krishna didn't kill him. Balaram
I never read that.
killed him. And my question is just in regards to demons, because that word demon is kind of, I'm asked that a lot in my preaching, because demon's a heavy word, and the general conception of a demon is a two-horned guy with a pitchfork. And so we have these different definitions of demons in the Bhagavatam. We have Rakshasas, we have Asuras, and then we have Prabhupada's or Krishna's definition of a demon in the Bhagavad Gita, which could mean basically anybody with these types of qualities. So we already heard, Bali Maharaj isn't a demon, Prahlad Maharaj isn't a demon, yet they're in this Daitya family.
Yeah.
So is there some type of clarification we can have as to, there's so many instances of demons that aren't demons, like Vritrasura, but they're called demons. So there's like the demon family, then there's the people who are demons with demoniac qualities. So I was wondering if you can perhaps speak a little about that.
Well, all I could say is that it all boils down to guna and karma, what they're actually doing, and what mode of nature they're under. But true, sometimes they may appear to be doing demonic things, but then all of a sudden it turns out that, it's not, that their ultimate act is one of devotion. So, and of course, we know that demon today and a devotee tomorrow. In other words, it's not, as long as you have consciousness, you can change. So, I think, the Prabhupada sometimes says those who don't, there's one definition, those who don't believe in the Vedic literature are known as asuras, the atheists, they're demons, like that. So that's the criterion, but nothing is in stone. The demons can become devotees. And I guess devotees over time can become demons if they're not serious. Sureshwar has an important comment. Yeah.
Turn the demons into devotees.
Yes, it is.
Just like Lord Chaitanya did with Jagai and Madhai.
Yeah. So good. What was Jagai and Madhai's guna and karma? Well, they started out as Brahmins, but they just became, just manifested all the qualities of the demons, and they were violent, and they were, but they got Lord Nityananda's mercy, and therefore Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And Lord Chaitanya warned the other devotees, now don't think of them in terms of their previous life now. They're intimate devotees of mine also, which is a really important thing. So, okay, one more and then we'll adjourn.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for such a nice lecture as
Hare
usual. My question was that like the suffix asura that we use, like Varnasura you were saying.
Well, I'm sorry.
The suffix asura.
Okay,
suffix
yes.
asura, like you were talking about Varnasura. So he has a suffix asura. So I was just wondering whether Varnasura was like their full name, or was this suffix added by Vyasadeva in order to tell us that, hey, this guy is definitely a demon. Because no one wants, even if they are bad
demons, they don't want to be known as demons.
Yes, yeah. So,
I couldn't give you a really authorized answer, but you see, is it Agasura? Is that his last name? or is his name really Aga? You know, but Aga doesn't mean sin. So I think they earned that asura. You know, Baka and Bakasura. You know, like that. There's millions of Bakas. By the way, he's not a duck. I think that there's a whole thing. Ducks don't have beaks, and ducks have bills. You know, so he's a heron, and that you'll find that in the Krishna book now. You know. All right, we gotta adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.